Okay, lesson 36. We continue with the philosophy of the Kleshas, based on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, chapter 2, sutra 16. The misery which is not yet come can and is to be avoided. This is one of my most favorite texts. The misery which is not yet come can and is to be avoided. In a very nice way, Patanjali is saying here, if you still experience misery in life, you're a nuthead, you're a coconut, you're stupid. I say that with a smile, because we need time to make the switch from ignorance to wisdom. And even in our wisdom, we will make mistakes here and there. But Patanjali is saying, ideally, based on your increased sensitivity, perception, awareness, you should be able to avoid misery from now on. If it happens, let it happen or undergo the misery consciously, so that at least you learn from it and can avoid it further down the road. The misery which, let me say it in my words, the misery that has not happened yet can and must be avoided. Examples? People who drive a car and while driving are texting with their mobile phone. That is a recipe for misery. Why? You will, if you're lucky, you will bump into a tree or a lamppost. If you're not lucky, you bump into another car, a pedestrian, a cyclist, you kill somebody. Or you kill yourself. All kinds of misery you could have easily avoided if you had just controlled yourself when you were driving and the ping came on your mobile phone. You just have to leave your phone for what it is and wait until you're not driving anymore. That's very difficult for most people. They just cannot resist. Their hand is just moving to the phone without control. Ego. Who is calling me? And what is the news? Crossing the road. In the first 2 months that I was in Korea, I've seen more accidents happening in Sarangdong than I've seen in the 33 years before. And often people crossing the road. Because when we cross the road, we are often busy doing other things. Even if we're not obviously doing other things, our mind is so busy that we, like robots, we just cross the road. Bang! Hit by a car. Now we live in the age of mobile phones. You see people crossing the road like this. And they are just crossing because the light says it's green, you are now allowed to walk. So we just walk. Can you? Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I'm just so conscious of the traffic that I have to watch. I have to look left and right multiple times. As a result, I never get hit by a car when crossing the road. The misery that has not come can and must be avoided. It's up to us. Basically, you know, the more you become a yogi, the more you will be limited to doing only one activity at a time, naturally. Not by choice, naturally. Because anytime you try to do multiple things at the same time, multitasking we call it, proudly often, you feel overwhelmed, you feel disturbed, you feel distracted. That happens to everybody who is multitasking, but people are not aware of that disturbance and distraction. As a yogi, you become so aware of it that you just cannot do it anymore. So when you cross a road, you cross a road. And you're 100% focused on that. When you climb a stair, you climb the stair. And you're 100% conscious of how you climb the stair, etc. You do things consciously, and that in itself will help you to avoid a lot of misery, accidents. I mentioned in the handout something about relationships. Because very often, because of our past karma, we end up in the same relationships again and again. That wouldn't be bad if there were not a pattern of misery, each time ending up in misery and breaking up. Have you noticed that when you feel attracted to somebody, that is a very complex issue, subconsciously, where subconsciously you choose to ignore, for example, warning signs. If I look back, I didn't have many relationships in my life, about 5. But if I look back at those relationships, how they started, each and every one of them had red alarm lights, alarm bells ringing. But you overruled them subconsciously. You waved them away subconsciously. And your excuse is there are things you are looking for in that person that you feel attracted to, which is often, of course, sexual. So one thing we have to learn is to not ignore those alarm bells anymore. And it does not only apply to relationships, it applies to many things in life, to jobs. Many people stay stuck in jobs that they actually hate, but they just keep going. Every morning to the office, every evening back home. And we just keep doing that, and we subconsciously we find all kinds of reasons and excuses to do that. And of course, fear is very much involved there, because we need money to pay the bills, to live our lives, and have some entertainment on top of it as a luxury. And, as we learned in the previous sutra, change is very disruptive. So we try to avoid it, even at the cost of staying in a place where we don't want to be. That applies to jobs, also to relationships. So I'm not saying that you should quit your job or end your relationship if there is a obstacle in the road. But be aware, be aware. The whole key is to be aware that you don't stay stuck for the long term. Why is this important? Because it kills the spirit. Literally kills the spirit. It kills the vitality in a human being to stay stuck in a situation where you don't want to be. Is that important? Yes. Yoga is about bringing energy up so that the spirit comes alive. So that there is inspiration again, so that you become connected again, so that you feel alive again. A situation where we get stuck, it happened with me many times. It's why I lost my hair. And what couldn't be lost turned white. That's okay, I make jokes about it. That's just part of life. But when you get stuck, your energy starts to condense. And if you're not a yogi, most people actually stay stuck there. In Muladhara Chakra, fear. And that is what's ruling 99% of the population on Earth, basically. So play with it. Be aware. Awareness is the first step. And from there, you try to experiment. See if you can change it. See if you can follow your own way, your own choice. And the word gradual comes to mind again. You know the story? I came to Korea to pursue Hapkido, but it took me 9 years to prepare. My Hapkido buddies, my Hapkido friends, when our Korean yoga master, Hapkido master left Amsterdam, within a year they came to Korea. I was very frustrated because of that. I wanted to go too, but I said, I'm not ready yet. They are so lucky and I'm so miserable. Now I look back, and the difference is, I planned very meticulously. Because I functioned as a yogi, I didn't just go there just because I wanted to go because my Hapkido master left and I wanted to follow him. Yes, I wanted to go, but with a clear goal. I wanted to have at least my 3rd-degree black belt. The calculation was that that was going to take at least 2 years of intensive training every day, but maybe even more. So instead of gathering the money that I had and go here, I went to school. Because I knew that I needed to be able to have my own business. So I went to school and studied economy and business administration. I also, people say when you go to Korea you can get by teaching English. But that's not my thing. So I thought, if I am qualified as a yoga teacher, I can teach anywhere in the world. Not only Korea, but anywhere in the world. So I made it a point to finish my study with Ajita, which took 7 years. The guys that came to Korea within a year of our master leaving, none of them stayed more than 1 year. Some of them came back without even their black belt. And only 2 of them had a 1st-degree black belt after 8 months. One stayed 8 months, one stayed for 1 year. Another one stayed only 4 months, and his money, well, he had no money anymore and he just had to go back. For me, I had saved enough money in those 9 years to stay at least 2 years, but I was prepared to make a living. And that's exactly what I did. So when you're in the middle of that, you don't see. All I saw was the misery, the frustration of them being able to go so soon and me taking 9 years. But I realized I had a plan. Later, in hindsight, I realized I had a very meticulous preparation. I didn't know I had that quality. Now I know. If you have a vision, you know where you want to go in life, you will automatically do that in the same way. Most people have no vision that goes much further than tomorrow. Like my Hapkido buddies. All of them had to go back and just end up back into their old job. Now, 35 years later, we have a WhatsApp group, 8 people. They visited Korea 2 years ago. They still talk about Hapkido. They still talk about the stupid jokes that we made 35 years ago, and they just keep repeating the same stupid joke. For me, it's all done. It's a past station, long time ago. I didn't even get my 3rd degree black belt. I got my 5th degree black belt, which was the ultimate goal, which I thought is impossible, but that was my ultimate goal, my ideal. That took 20 years. And when I've not pursued it anymore, it just came. Gradual. And while you follow your heart, we're talking here about avoiding misery. If I had not chosen the path of yoga, I would have been in the same cycle, the same cyclical pattern of misery that my other family members are in or were in, that led to their death. So what I'm trying to say is that when you start avoiding misery because you're alert, you start paying attention, it doesn't mean that it's immediately ended. We call that purification, purification of karma. You start following your heart, you take your time, gradual, you plan every step, and you don't give up when there are obstacles and challenges. While you are following your heart, you feel like as if you are in heaven. In spite, when I was training Hapkido, twice a day, 6 days a week, I was exhausted. I broke my ankle after a year. I was exhausted, but I felt so good. Can you imagine? It sounds like a total contradiction. That is when you follow your heart, you can overcome anything. But you feel connected, you feel being where you want to be, where you choose to be. You feel that you are fulfilling your destiny. It all sounds like spiritual nonsense, but it makes a huge difference. In the end, that is what yoga is about. Yoga is not superficially spending your time in a yoga class. Yes, it's important. Use the framework to lay a foundation. But in the end, yoga is life. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not just life, but living lives consciously from this moment on. I didn't want to work for a boss. Not only I, but my siblings also have trouble working for a boss. We like to be independent. So I always thought, I had a teacher at night school where I studied economy and business administration, who was passionate about stock investment. And so he talked about that and explained about it. So while I was planning everything, I was also preparing for far away down the road. And I thought, with money, you can make money. That's what stock investment is about. With money, you can make money. So when I started having some spare money, I've always been very austere, even when I had money. So instead of spending money on luxury or comfort or, unnecessary things, I started experimenting with stock investment. Because I knew, no, not I knew, I just felt deep inside my heart that everything can just be done tomorrow. Teaching yoga, or living in Korea, or whatever. In 2008, I started with a little, just a small amount of money, just start investing. I cannot recommend you to do that. I really don't. Two things. Don't take dogs and don't invest. Unless you really feel that it's your destiny. Because it may look romantic, it's not. Many people, these days it's kind of like a fashion. Many people start investing. Most of them lose money and don't have the heart to continue. They lose money, take their loss, and never ever want to touch a stock again. Korean people especially know, they know family members or friends, they've gone bankrupt from stock investments and what have you. I've lost money, I never gave up. And you know, we talked about energy. Good energy attracts good energy. Bad energy attracts bad energy. When I closed my yoga school in Itaewon, I came across a businessman with whom I had a connection. He is the one who brought me to that very super commercial gym, one of the biggest in Korea, and wanted me to manage 2 studios there. I called him Yogi Businessman. Why? Because he had a heart. And that is why it was possible to work there with him and his team. They just left me alone. No wangta, no kaptil. It was really good. It gave me 8 years of stability in which I could grow enormously, personally and as a yoga teacher and as a private person. Same thing happened with investing. I lost money. I tried this, lost money. I tried that, lost money. Then I became part of an investment club. They had a team of 3 managers, of which one was a female. And while communicating by text message, you can feel something, right? Energy. So she's the yogi investor. The problem with investment is it's about money, and we talked about money in the earlier session. Money does funny things with people, strange things with people. And many fund managers or stock analysts, they cheat. They use your money to get richer themselves while they don't have to. So that was happening with that investment club too. She then got a conflict with the other 2 managers, guys, and she left. And then she sent me a text message. Hey Ron, I left. You want to work with me, don't you? So I said, yes, of course. So she said, okay, I will take a rest and I will contact you. So it took more than a year before she contacted me. And I lost more money trying another kind of investing. But she contacted me, and since last year, she has a small group, very exclusive. And she really does it very sincerely and honestly. She gives us tips when to buy, when to sell. Really, no cheating or using it for our own gain. But if I look back, that is where I started 35 years ago. It has always been my aim to end up there one way or another. And I talked the past couple of classes about the desperation that I ended up in the past couple of years. It's because everything seemed to not work out. But like I said before, the universe tests you. You have to show heart. You have to show persist. Don't give up, especially not when it gets difficult. And that the same way I'm talking to you, I talk to myself when I'm in trouble. Just keep. Next year will not be the same as today. Today you may be in trouble. Just keep going. Take good care of yourself. Exercise every day. Take care of the dogs. The dogs came onto my path. I see it as another test. Nobody could take care of them. They were basically given up because they're too delicate, too complex. Now, man, they're so sweet. They're sensitive, especially the one is more sensitive than the other. One cannot be touched yet by other people except by me, but they're so wonderful, so sweet. I invested all my time and energy in them. It's a full-time job. And because investment is going reasonably well, it's okay to have them as a full-time occupation. But do not romanticize this. If it's not for you, you're gonna lose money. I lost money for 11 years before, so I don't want you to go through all that misery. Generally, you have a job and you put money aside for a pension fund, right? In the Netherlands, you don't even have a choice, it's automatically deducted from your salary. In Holland, we never talk about our gross salary, we always talk about net salary, because the difference is huge. You pay so much in social securities and what have you. Medical insurance is also a public obligation. So we never talk about gross salary, always net salary. In Korea, since I started the company 20 years ago, I'm paying also these for pension fund and medical insurance, but that's not as good as it is in Holland. So I've always thought by myself, I'm not going to rely on the government or anybody. So that is why I'm on this path, and I'm really relieved that it is working out finally. But it also shows that if you don't give up, you get there where you want to be. It took a lifetime. But I think that's what life is about, isn't it? Life is not about, well, you know, if you have room and the luxury, you can go on all kinds of adventures and what have you. For me, life is an adventure in itself, every day. I've never told anybody about this, but I thought it was time because of this sutra here. The misery that has not come can and must be avoided. In the realm of this story is, long time ago I decided that is the way to go to avoid poverty when getting older and not being able to teach yoga anymore, for example. While I gave up my Dutch nationality, maybe you understand better now. I've always been determined not to have to rely on the government to take care of me. If I receive some pension, okay, that's fine, but I'm not going to expect I'm not like that. I must be able to take care of myself. It's the same when you get sick. When people get sick, they go to a doctor and they just passively undergo treatment, passively take the medicine. When I get sick, I want to know why. What did I do wrong that made me sick? And I don't want the medicine. I want to correct the reason why I got sick, and I do. 2 years ago, when I was in deep trouble, it's a complicated story, but you know angina? Angina is a heart problem. Usually angina is caused by bad habits. Eating lots of junk food, no exercise, smoking, alcohol. But there is a rare form of angina that can happen while you're very healthy. That's happened to me, and it is caused by tension, by worry, by stress. And it manifests in the form of spasms in the coronary artery. So that's the arteries around the heart that provide the heart, which is a muscle, of oxygen. So it leads to a deprivation of oxygen, and in a worst case, it can lead to damage to the heart muscle. So it didn't get to that, but the doctor put me on medicine, and every time I visited him, I asked, how long do I have to take this medicine? And every time he said, for the rest of your life. So I started to not take the medicine. I continued to visit him. You talk about the heart, so nothing to mess with. I didn't want to mess with it, but I also didn't want to accept that I'm going to have to take that medicine for the rest of my life. They say it has no side effects, but it has. It makes you dizzy, it makes you... every medicine, chemical, has a side effect, even if it's minor. As a yogi, you can't accept that if you can avoid it. So I just stopped taking it, but I kept visiting him according to appointment. And I didn't tell him for the first 6 or 9 months. I came every 3 months. After 9 months or so, I told him I didn't take the medicine. Do you think I can stop? I don't need it anymore. Because my conclusion is that it was caused by distress, by worry, that is why I needed to take a break at that time. But my answer to this problem is to solve those issues that led, and I solved them. And I stopped taking the medicine, and of course I pay very careful attention to what I feel in my chest. And month after month after month, and I said, I think I can stop taking this medicine. So he said, okay, let's just for 1 month, you stop taking it, then you come back. And my blood pressure is perfect, everything is perfect. So, done. If I had not been so stubborn, I'm 57 now, so I would have had to take this medicine for the next 30 years of my life if I get that old. Or the next 20 or 25 years of my life. I cannot accept that. Unless there is no other choice. The misery that has not come, can, and must be avoided means taking charge. It sounds strange because everybody thinks they're taking charge, but the reality shows different. Especially when it comes to medical issues, people feel totally dependent on doctors, not realizing that it is in their own hands. It is in your own hands. Everything is energy. If I look back now, I remember very clearly that year when I went to Kwangamun, they required that I teach 3 classes a day every day, and Saturday, Sunday, all day I did the teacher training course. 7 days a week. Week after week after week. It killed me. It broke me. What I felt is the muscles became very tensed, and they did not relax anymore even when I had a couple of days, like Sola or Chuseok or Christmas, when you have 4 or 5 days. My muscles did not relax anymore. I remember thinking very clearly, the heart is also a muscle. If all the muscles are tense, the heart is also tense, and that is dangerous. Alertness. Pay attention and take control. You can. Everybody can. In Holland we have a saying, an expression. You are rather lazy than you are tired. Is there an English equivalent? It's a very often heard expression in the Netherlands. You are rather lazy than tired. That means people have a tendency to just be passive. Even when they know they're in trouble, they will not exert themselves to get out. So you're rather lazy than tired. You understand what this means?
I think you should switch out the word rather for more than it would.
How would you say that then in English, proper?
Instead of like you're rather, you're more.
Okay.
More lazy than tired. Or
No, it's a choice, or a kind of a subconscious choice. People rather do not come into action even when they know they are in trouble, because they choose not to get into action to solve the problem. They just choose to be lazy. That is a general tendency among most people. We don't like it, of course, but it's a general tendency. As a yogi, you become too conscious to function like that. You'll be very calm, very sattvic, until you end up in trouble. Then you will jump into action like nobody can imagine. And you will do what you have to do until it is done. So sometimes you push yourself to the edge. But that is how you earn good karma, I guess, good credits for the universe. Sounds strange, but I am convinced it works like that. Show heart and it will be rewarded. And if you believe in something, you're going to have a hard time. If you follow your heart, which means that you believe in something, you're going to have a hard time. It's much easier to just take a regular job, get married, buy a house, and just for the next 40 years just do like that. But if you follow your heart, there will be many obstacles and challenges. There will be moments of sheer desperation that you rather jump off the highest floor or the bridge over the Han River, but you have your spirit, your crown chakra. That is where your courage lies, your hope, your dreams. Sometimes you fall out of it, but you know how to get back up there. Rationalize what you feel. Rationalize your subconscious functioning, make it conscious. If you follow your heart, you won't take a dog. Why I'm saying this is, if you take a dog because you romanticize my story about adopting dogs, you're setting yourself up for a lot of misery. Because you go to a shop and you buy one of those designer doggies, and tomorrow you wake up and you think, shit, I have to get up, I have to take my dog out. It's just an accessory, a toy. When my previous dog died, I said, I don't want a dog anymore. She also came to me as a form of destiny, being tied to the water tap in my neighbor's apartment with an untieable knot. Only 2 months old. No food, no water. She would poop and then turn around and eat her own poop. So I rescued her. When my dog died, it was so painful. I'm alone here, and I needed to find a way to live my life again. Investment didn't go that well at that time yet. So my future was about starting a studio. I was going to start a studio until it came, basically. The universe doesn't want me to have a studio, it wants me to take care of those 2 dogs. I was determined not to take a dog anymore 6 months before Pada crossed my path. When it is meant to be, you will know. And when it is really meant to be, the universe will create the room and the opportunity to enable you to do so. Because if I had just used my head and adopted those two dogs while I'm in a deep dark hole, that dark hole would have only gotten deeper and those dogs would have been very miserable. Can you see that? In my opinion, a dog is not a luxury. But when you come across a dog in the form of destiny, your relationship will be very different compared to when you have a dog because you chose to go to a shop and buy a designer doggy, which very often have genetic defects. I love these dogs to pieces. And I wake up with a mission to walk them, to make them happy. If it is a designer dog that you buy from the shop, you grumble. Oh my God, I have to take him out again. See? So don't take dogs, don't start investing. Unless you really, there's no other way. That is meant to be. Good, long story. The misery that has not come can and must be avoided. Keep your eyes open, pay attention. Misery will come more, but because it happens from today consciously, you will be able to eliminate it over time. And that is the purification process that yoga is talking about. You know, many people think yoga is a luxury, is new agey, is you don't have to worry, flower power, you don't have to worry about anything. Let's live life and just enjoy. That is made up fantasy. Because yoga, more than anything else, puts you with both feet on the ground in reality. That is very important to understand because most people see yoga as a luxury with your head floating in the clouds, not connected with reality. There are people who behave like that, but they behave like that in a superficial way because they believe that is what spirituality is about. Real spirituality is very realistic, concrete, both feet on the ground, in reality. More than ever before, more than anybody else. Wait, I also mentioned under that sutra something about helping other people. Do you understand that you're not allowed to help other people? You understand that? No, I understand that you don't understand that. But it's very simple. If I'm in trouble, it's because I'm ignorant. If I'm suffering, it's because I'm ignorant. If you help me to solve my problem, I haven't learned anything from my misery. It will happen again. That is why you're not allowed to help people. But, and this is important, sometimes you need to help. But when you help, you must help people to help solve their own problem. So you don't solve the problem for them, you try to hand them some tips, some advice, but they must do it themselves. Let me give you an example. It's something that bothered me until it all turned out exactly the way that it should have. I was in a long-term relationship in the beginning years of my stay in Korea, And my partner was the oldest sibling of 5 kids. So she had 2 brothers, she had 3 brothers and 1 sister. Her sister is deaf-mute, married with a man who's deaf-mute. And they had 2 children, 2 daughters, who were not deaf-mute. You understand deaf-mute? Not being able to talk and to hear. In Korea, there is this sense that when somebody is handicapped, they are helpless and they need to be helped. And the family is responsible for that. So the family dutifully did that. They helped them with everything, paid their bills, provided them with a small house where they could live. And I saw a pattern there. This is what happened. We were all working very hard, the siblings, the sister and the 3 brothers. Everybody was struggling, working hard. That was also at the time of they call it IMFC day, the huge collapse of the economy in the late 1990s. So people were really struggling. They, however, were always partying, careless. My partner had a pizza shop, Chicago Pizza, and she would employ her sister and her husband, delivering pizza, helping her out in the shop. But they would come and then they would not, and very unreliable. And then they would just quit from one day to another. So my partner would try to get them a job at the district office, or, you know, use connections. But every 3 months, when the internet was disconnected, gas, water, electricity was disconnected, they would come with a fan of bills. Oni, they cut off all utilities, please help. And Oni would collect money with the other brothers and pay all the bills, and everything would be connected again, only to be repeated 3 months later. So I observed it, and at some point I said, you know, you should stop helping your sister and her husband. Because whenever they have a little bit of money, they order pizza and chicken. They have a car, but whenever they get a job, they quit after a week. And they come to you for all the bills to be paid, again and again and again. So my partner agreed with me, and we stopped helping them. That led to a lot of misery that made me really conflicted whether I had done the right thing. They had to move out of their house to a very small government-provided apartment where many poor people live together. Those apartments are as small as your bathroom. Ridiculous, but anyway. But something really miraculous happened. The 2 daughters, they were, one was 5 years old, the other was 8 years old, so very young and very easily impressible. They didn't learn anything from their parents, so they started really making trouble in school, bullying other kids, ganging up with other kids from a poor background, smoking, sex, what have you, so young. So they were really going towards a very bad adulthood in that way. What happened when we stopped supporting them and they moved to this very, very small, tiny little apartment, is mom started her own business. she started selling accessories in front of the army base in Uijeongbu. She started making money. She started getting self-respect. After a year or two, they bought a house, an apartment on the 22nd floor. The girls started doing very well in school, and they don't even remember anymore how bad they behaved when they were young. Just amazing. It took time, a couple of years. It was very scary for me being the instigator of all that misery. But it turned out so well. They started helping themselves because nobody did it for them anymore. And this is why do not help people solve their problem. Help them help themselves. "17. The cause of that which is to be avoided is the union of the seer and the seen." It's a story that I've repeated several times. We have a tendency to think through the mind. So we do not see the reality. We create the reality, what we want to see. So, with the example of a relationship, there are alarm bells subconsciously, but they are there. If you look back later, you just ignore them because you create this reality where you think you have a benefit. So, what we are looking at here, the union of the seer and the seen, that is ego being responsible for us identifying with whatever it is that we're looking at. And because of that, we have no vision, we have no oversight. And we are just being dragged into situations that we didn't choose for. We just can't help it because we don't see the reality. We talked about that several times, so we do not really have to go too deep into that again. But the answer here again is your ability to distance yourself through contemplation. When you meditate, you automatically start seeing the situations that you are in that in a normal condition you wouldn't be able to see. You're not conscious of. Just that moment on a fairly regular basis to sit on your cushion with your eyes closed in silence, no TV, no radio, gives you the possibility to oversee yourself within the situations that you are being confronted with. Something that you normally do not see, cannot see. So again, yoga is not a luxury, meditation is not a luxury. It has incredible practical value, life-changing value, I would say. When you close your eyes, you give yourself the possibility simply to take a step back from whatever it is that you are involved with. And that is where you see what you need to do or not do. Sutra 18. The seeing consists of the elements and sense organs, is the nature of cognition, activity and stability, and has for its purpose providing the Purusha with experience and liberation. Now this sounds very complicated, and you see in the explanation also it's being approached in a scientific way. I'm going to keep this very simple for you. First of all, there is the acknowledgement that our functioning changes if our condition changes. In tamas, we act and react differently, or not at all, compared to how we act and react in the rajas condition. The ideal condition is a firm basis of sattva with small fluctuations to tamas and rajas. Now this still sounds very scientific, but the sutra has a very nice message. It's the end of the sentence. The world around us has for its purpose providing the Purusha, which is your spirit, your soul, with experience and liberation. In the Bible, there is a sentence that says, God created the world for man. Not man, but for mankind. What does that mean? Providing Purusha with experience and eventually liberation. In my words, this means the world is your playground. As long as you play in an ignorant condition, you will only encounter conflict and misery. But from the moment that you start playing consciously, living life consciously, the sutra comes to life. Your experiences are there to provide Purusha, your soul, with experience that leads eventually to liberation. You reach liberation, you achieve liberation by living life, daily life, consciously. Because from the moment that you start living consciously, a dynamic process of growth and development, evolution occurs. It's of course a long-term process. You have a lifetime to do that. But God created the world for mankind. That is this. So we don't the whole philosophy of the Kleshas is about becoming aware of misery and then trying to avoid it. Patanjali does not say, withdraw yourself from society, live high on a mountain, far away from the hubris, the hustle and bustle of daily life, so you can avoid all the trouble. No, he says, just continue living your life as a human being, but start doing it consciously from now on. If you do that, that in itself is leading to feeding your spirit. And in the long term, it leads to liberation. It's interesting, huh? Life is your playground. So life is damn serious business. It is. But we must keep playing. Because the moment that we start taking life serious, we block our energy, and that is where we get stuck. As you have experienced many times in your life already. We get stuck. When you play, even with very serious issues in life, you keep your energy flowing, which allows you oversight, which allows you creativity to deal with difficult situations. So it sounds very paradoxical, but it works. It's like walking on a tightrope. You understand walking on a tightrope? It's a balancing act. If you go a little bit too much to the left, you fall off the rope. A little bit too much. Life is like that, from our perspective. When we fall off our rope, we don't cry, we don't break down, we climb back on the rope and we try to avoid the mistake that led us falling off that rope. Learning from experience. And so yoga becomes very much alive, very much applicable to daily life. Okay, we have one more. It's a very difficult one also. The stages of the gunas are the particular, the universal, the differentiated, and the undifferentiated. I'm going to keep that very simple too. In our ignorant condition, we only know that we are in trouble when we're in the middle of it. And then it's too late. Patanjali, however, suggests here that there are stages in which misery develops. And it starts at very subtle level. It's like getting sick. We don't realize that we're sick until we start having physical symptoms. Like actually really being sick. But that is the last stage. Before the symptoms, there are many signals that are subtle, that we do not acknowledge, that we ignore. It's the same with misery. Again, referring back to relationships. At the beginning of relationships, there may be, not always of course, alarm bells. That is the first stage. There is the warning that we ignore. And yet we continue pursuing the relationship. In the end, you find yourself in a very miserable situation. And the misery has completely manifested. You're engulfed by it, drowning in it. So that's life as long as we are ignorant. We do not anticipate. As a yogi, however, and based on experience, you develop more and more power of anticipation. Simple example, if you cross a road, you anticipate the possibility that you can get hit by a car, even when your light is green and the cars have a red light. It does happen that cars jump the red light and kill people. So knowing that, you always look where you're going, even when your light is green. That is anticipating potential danger or misery. With relationships, I just ended up asking myself a very simple question. If I feel attracted to somebody, I ask myself, if I were rich and totally independent, would I still be interested in being with that person? The past couple of years, since 2014, I've been single because my karma has not burned up yet. I need to work more to become totally independent. I don't have to be rich, but I need to be financially independent, and also as a foreigner in Korea, not needing anybody to do what I need to do. Administration, going to the doctor or hospital, all these kind of things. And it took me 20 years to get there, 24 years, but I'm getting there. So I want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. I need to be alone. And recognizing that, wanting to avoid new misery, I just take my time and keep working on my independence financially, as well as in terms of being able to take care of anything else in daily life. Because if there is a possibility for a future relationship, I want it to be pure. Not because I expect, because that is how relationships usually are, and we have to learn that through our misery. If you honestly look at your motivations to be with somebody, there are always material issues involved. So I had a lot of misery because of that, because I had a lot of karma. It also means my partners had a lot of karma too that connected with my karma. So there's no winner-loser in that story. I grew a lot from those situations, and my partner grew a lot from those situations too. And you move on. Yeah. It's difficult, huh? Now you know why you don't have to go to the Eiffel Tower or go deep sea diving, or you don't need a bucket list. Life has so many challenges of itself. Questions? Okay. Time for some asana then. Let's have a very short break.